Welcome to a new episode of the Focus Bee Show. Today we're going to talk about energy, which is one of my absolute favorite topic. If you've been following my content, you know that I believe in energy management and not time management, and this is why energy is so important. So how can you get rid of vampires and find fairies? I have one right here. You can find one too. Let me explain. When we think about energy, we need to look at what drains our energy and what fuels us. And this is something that if we don't take the time and pause to look and think and reflect about this, then we're not likely to notice what actually drains us and fuels us, or we're not going to notice it fully. And this has a tremendous impact on our productivity, our performance, our fulfillment. First of all, the vampires. Vampires is what I choose to call what drains our energy. If you just think about it for a while, maybe close your eyes and think, what drains you? You might start to see people. Unfortunately, yes, some people can drain our energy, either because they have low energy or because their personality doesn't fit with ours. There can be a lot of reasons why certain people drain our energy. Can be afraid of them, maybe if it's a superior boss that's a bit imposing. There's a lot of different reasons why people can drain our energy. This is one example of a vampire. There's also places. Might be certain places you just don't feel happy in, or disrupt you, or you don't like the vibe, the energy, the atmosphere. And places can be both a cafe, a restaurant, a home, a flat, but it can also be countries and cities. There might just be entire places where you just don't feel you connect. Does that resonate? But this is if you're looking at external vampires. So people, places, are all things that are external. Now let's look at some of the internal vampires. Thoughts, emotions. Maybe you have this repetitive thought, maybe of, I'm not good enough, or I'll never make it there, or, I'll never find the perfect job, or I'll never have the best body, or I'll never be as fit as I want to be, or any of these thoughts tend to drain our energy. They can also be fears. Things you're particularly afraid of. Oof. I can imagine this resonates. Thinking of the fears instantly drains our energy. While I'm talking right now, I'm making a deliberate effort not to think about fears while I talk about the topic of fears, because I know that it will drain my energy. This is a great example of vampire. And yes, some fears may be useful, like 1% of them, the instant ones on the fight, flight, response mode. But most fears, worries, doubts don't actually help us. And another internal vampire is emotions. The eternal thought emotion cycle. Emotions can also, of course, drain our energy, whether it's feeling overwhelmed or burnt out or angry or upset or frustrated or impatient. All of this can just impact how we show up. Have you noticed, for example, that if you receive a certain email that just puts you in a wrong frame of mind, then when you're on a call afterwards or you have an appointment, you just feel that your whole energy is off? Yes, so this might be considered as an external factor or an external vampire, the email, but it's actually more the internal vampire, which is the emotion. If you think about it, the email could almost be neutral. Maybe if someone else had read it, they wouldn't have responded that way. So it's your internal triggers, your internal way of processing the information that resides in a drain of energy. So these are examples of vampires. Now, how about fairies? How can we find fairies? I love fairies. I actually have a collection of them. Growing up, I've always been fascinated with magic, and somehow fairies caught my attention. Now, why fairies? Fairies are the exact opposite. They're what fuels us. They're what makes us feel happy and alight and excited and energized. And in a very similar way, you can have external fairies and internal fairies. External, yes, there might be people again, maybe your best friend, maybe a family member, maybe one of your colleagues with who you always have a great laugh, someone that makes you feel bubbly and happy and energized. Those are external fairies. And the same with places. So similar to vampires, it's looking at what fuels your energy, what makes you feel great. And that could be a lovely cafe. You'd like to go there and have a nice tea or coffee and read your book. Maybe it's your living room. Maybe it's a specific place in your co-work. I know that I have my own office here in the co-work, but sometimes I go downstairs in the open space and there's a lovely view on the yachts and the boats, and it's so nice to actually see the surroundings, and that's maybe my fairy environment. And in a very similar way, we have internal fairies. So those are the thoughts that make everything feel good, make everything feel happy. They're thoughts such as, this is such a wonderful day, and I'm so grateful to be here today. I'm so happy to be seeing such and such. Those thoughts make us feel great, and they fuel us. They give us energy. And it follows with the emotions. We have fairy emotions: excitement, joy, passion, peace. I hope a lot of these resonate with you and that you can feel in your body how differently the vampire emotions and the fairy emotions feel. Of course, it's not all black and white, and all emotions have a purpose, and there is a cross between the fairy and the vampires. There's some that we can't really categorize, but you get the idea. Now, how do you get rid of the vampires and find more fairies? In other words, how do you stop having things that drain you and find more things that fuel you and make you feel happy and satisfied? The very, very, very first step, pretty much like any internal work, is awareness. You want to recognize what drains you and what fuels you. Without this awareness, you can't really get rid of the vampires if you can't see them. And you can't find more fairies if you're not looking for them. Start thinking during your day. Take a moment now. Take pen and paper. I always prefer that than the digital version. Take a pen and paper and write down, what really energized me today? And on the contrary, write down, what drained me? I'll give you an example. This morning, I was listening to Imogen Roy's podcast on a year of magical living, and I really like it. It always fuels me when I listen to it. So many practical insights and so well said and put. And so that was a huge fairy in my day to start the day. I also had another fairy. I've had loads of fairies today. I practiced Pilates workout with Move with Nicole on YouTube. She's also absolutely fantastic. I'll put her in the show notes. That also was a fantastic fairy. Those are just examples. But it can also be something like music. So it could be a podcast, it could be music, but it could also be a thought pattern or belief. It's not always about the external results. The more fairies you have and find in your day and your life, the easier everything will become. Your work will feel easy, your life will feel easy. Things won't feel like such a struggle, because what you're doing when you're killing these vampires, when you're getting rid of them, is you're allowing more room and more space for peace, for happiness, for joy, and you don't have all of these things weighing you down. Coming back to the process, how to get rid of them. First of all, identify. Identify these vampires, identify the fairies. Do an analysis, a reflection on the last week, even the last day, and start writing down, oh, this made me feel great, this drained me. And write down small things. This email, put me a bit off, and start to look, what is it about the email? Then you can see, is it just a relationship with that person that's off? Is it the way they formulated it? What's your trigger here? Once you have this awareness, it's literally a matter of fact of attempting to have as little as possible of the vampires and as much as possible of what fuels you and the fairies. To do this, you need to work and live with intention. It all comes back to intention. Isn't it funny how so much of it comes back to awareness, intention, awareness, intention, and attention, focus. Of course, placing your focus on what fuels you, on what energizes you. There might be things that you can't eliminate. For example, I know that in my case, it particularly drains me in the winter in Sweden when it gets dark. And this is just physiologically how my body feels. Now, what you can do in these moments, what I do is I compensate in different ways, more self-care practices, taking my vitamin D pills, having more sleep, but also just knowing that this is something that I find a bit challenging, and therefore I might be more tolerant towards myself if I feel that I need more sleep. And I might be more respectful of my own needs around this time, or if I don't achieve the results as quickly as I want, because I know that my energy isn't as high, physiologically speaking, than it is in the summer. So this is an example of a sort of vampire that we can't really control. I mean, if I could control the light in Sweden, I think I'd be very popular. And when we can't do anything about it, at least noticing, okay, this might drain me a bit. How can I compensate? So adding more fairies or happiness or fuels into your life to compensate for this vampire or this aspect that we can't change. Again, the whole Stoicism around accepting what you can't control and acting upon what you can control. Once you have this awareness and you have this really clear intention about how to get rid of what drains you and how you can have more of what fuels you, then your energy will start to rise. And you'll really notice a difference both in the way you work, but also just in how you feel, and being more in tune with your body, being more aligned with what actually works for you, both emotionally, mentally, physically speaking. This alignment is really what gives us the joy and fulfillment that we need or that we long for. One last tool that can be useful for you. So once you've done an analysis and looked back, that's one way. But another way is also just to imagine, because there might be things that aren't yet part of your life, but could make you feel fueled, could make you feel happy, but you're not used to practicing or implementing them. So in this case, just think back either to your childhood, or even look at someone that you like or admire or respect their work and think, what are they doing that you'd also like? And this could be a possible fairy hidden. Because if you just look back at the last week or so, or 2 weeks or month, you'll only see the things that drain and fuel you that you're used to doing. But what if there was a whole other activity out there that would make you feel so great? Maybe you'd love running. Maybe you could get into dancing. Maybe it's time you start reading again or diving into novels that you used to love as a kid. Maybe for some of you it's sci-fi. For other of you it's romances. It doesn't really matter. It's just thinking a bit outside the box. Maybe you stopped listening to music and you used to love it, but somehow you're out of the habit. Or you'd love to start an instrument. I love playing the guitar. I loved learning the guitar a few years ago. I used to play the piano and the flute as a child, and I love singing. Music is a huge part of my life. I think it's another great way to feel happy and fulfilled and satisfied, and loads of fairies. Music is loads of fairies. So thinking a bit outside the box, I think it can really help to get inspiration from other people. I know that when I listen to podcasts, when I watch YouTube videos, it always gives me ideas and insights on, hey, maybe I could do this. This could be fun. So that was another tip on finding more of the fairies. And to eliminate the vampires, as we said, try to reduce them as much as possible. And the ones that you can't eliminate, just compensate by having more fairies, having more joy in your life, and accepting what you can't change. So I hope you've enjoyed today's episode on how to get rid of vampires and find more fairies in your life so that you can have more energy. Then you don't need to go about managing your time and controlling your time, because with energy, you will be able to achieve so much more. And not just achieve so much more. That's not what life is about, but just be happier, be more at peace and at ease if you have all of this bundles of energy and joy in your life. Please let me know in the comments what was most useful for you. Like this video or share it with a friend, or this podcast episode if you're listening to the audio version. Thank you for tuning in and looking forward to seeing you in the next episode. I wish I did see people while I spoke. That would be great. But the more you comment and review, the more I'm able to see what actually is helping you, what insights you're having, and how this is helping you to move forward. Thank you for tuning in today.